It blows my mind to think about how often I start my day listening to this sound. You could say that it's the sound of something special starting, or under certain deadlines it often feels like a gun being fired at the start of a foot race. What it actually is the sound of an edit system booting up. This one's Windows-based, but in the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what type of computer you use because it's just a tool. Don't get me wrong, it's an important tool, and over 75% of my time as an artist is spent sitting in front of it. But my tools don't control me. They don't come up with my ideas, they don't define me as an artist, and there isn't yet a filter that can apply my life experiences to a project. These days, when starting out as a filmmaker or photographer, you're often told that in order to be a professional, you need to buy things. Buy brands, subscriptions, be in debt. Like I said before, these things work for you, so you should be picking and choosing the tools that work for each project, and if it doesn't, you move on to the next. I want to go back to my recent trip to Las Vegas and the NAB convention. Like I said in the last episode, I only go to this giant sales pitch to meet with old friends. And this group of friends I met specifically while looking for a new tool. You see, I don't like to feel bullied. That's a big part of who I am. Now, if you were to tell me that this is how I have to do something, don't be surprised if I politely give you the middle finger, head out the front door, and find a different way in. A few years ago, my big expensive edit systems became obsolete, and I refused to pay a ton of money to a big brand that wasn't meeting my needs. That's how I found my buddies at Puget Systems. Now, yes, they are a sponsor for my show, but even if they weren't, I'd be telling you about these guys, and I'd be telling you about another way that works. But I promise you that this podcast isn't just one big sales pitch. As usual in this business, I have met some people that are really great human beings, and we have a lot in common, from computers to barbecue to travel. Whenever I sit down and have beers with these guys, the conversations are always a lot of fun. So, that being said, come join us as we drink beers at a fancy high-rise hotel in Las Vegas while looking out the window at this gaudy, awful gold dildo of a building that has Trump's name on the side of it. God, I love Las Vegas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another very special episode of In Love with the Process. I am out in Las Vegas this week, and I am joined by Dave, who is shooting video right now. And you're not on mic for this one, so we are going to talk lots of shit about you, and there is nothing you can say about it. I'm also joined by my brother from another mother. I think that's the way we're going to introduce you from now on.
Great.
Mr. Tony Fernandez.
Thank you very much for having me again, even though I'm the one working on the audio equipment.
Tony's also doing all of the audio work for the show. And I'm joined by some very special gentlemen from Puget Systems. Introduce yourselves one at a time.
Yeah, Eric Brown. I'm our program manager for our recommended system program. So,
also like a really nice guy. He's not really that boring in real life. Okay, next.
Don't lie.
I'm Matt Bach. I do a lot of our software testing, like Premiere, After Effects, Resolve, and all that kind of stuff. Look at all the hardware for the different software packages.
He is that boring in real life.
I am that boring in real life.
Very good job.
Yeah.
My name is Chris Stevens, and I'm the Vice President of Operations. And I don't even know what that means. There I am.
We just know he does some stuff.
I'm there. I'm present, and that's what counts.
All right, so if you're wondering why we're all hanging out and talking, I think this episode, I'd like to get into a few things. One, I really want to talk about tools. And as a filmmaker, there are a handful of tools that are a necessity. You may need to have a camera, but you can always rent a camera. You may need to have some lights, but you can always rent lights. But if you are a storyteller, at some point or another, you need to have a computer and you need to have an edit system. And as we know, Tony, a lot of our stories are made in the edit. And that creative process is often very fluid, very desperate at times. And I find that as a creator, I'm trying to put myself in a mindset in which I can come up with a great story, and I don't want my tools to stop me from doing so. And we have been in the edit suite many a times. When I start screaming, at this inanimate object and giving it a name, and then giving it a bunch of horrible names.
It can be real rough because that end of it is supposed to run as smoothly as possible, because any little hiccup, it's way too far gone to do anything to fix it at that point. Like you have the footage you have, and now if your edit system is not working, like you still have to push through it. You get what you can out of it, and that could be a nightmare.
And so what I want to do for this episode, this isn't an episode where I'm plugging a product and then I'm saying to you guys should all go out and buy this product. As many of you know, if you have watched any of the In Love with the Process stuff, if you've seen any of my work in the past, I have a great relationship with these guys. These guys do sponsor us, and they take care of us. And we have a really good friendship, more so than anything else at this point. And I think it's just really sort of important to show that this business is about friendships. This business is about relationships. And if you're setting out to do something like this, if you're setting out, maybe you're trying to find your own sponsors, or maybe you're trying to form your own relationships and learn about equipment and learn about gear, it's important not to be fake. It's important to really be passionate about your stuff. And it's important to find people that are incredibly passionate about what they do. Sometimes it works. Sometimes there's a great mix. And I feel like we have a very special relationship because we all seem to like the same kind of stuff. And we all, at that one point in time, really kind of needed each other to make things better. I needed you guys to build us better edit systems because I was just fucking bullshit at Apple and Mac. And, you know, it was really great to find you guys. And I don't want to go on forever about this. I'll just wrap this up by saying that the one thing I really like about you cats is that you are a very, I'm not going to say you guys aren't a big business. You guys are very like mom and pop, like very simple shop that you do amazing work. And I feel like when I need you, I can call you and I get you guys on the phone. And it's not just because we have this relationship. I mean, I've talked to other people that have worked with you guys and they get the same thing. They call you on the phone and they get you. And from a filmmaker's perspective, and like the high drama that we go through with our stuff, that's really important. The last thing that we want is to be in call waiting. So I guess that's as much of an intro as that I want to do with this.
You know, if you keep talking shit about Apple, they're gonna break your phone.
Yeah.
You're gonna send some shit and it'll be out.
I think it just happened recently, actually, where I was sitting for 2 days in customer support on my iPhone because they claimed that my account was disabled, my iTunes account was disabled. So I had to call, and I'm going to talk shit. I had to call them to get my account re-enabled, and I sat on the phone for a while, and then they're like, look, you got to change your password. And I'm like, oh my God, all right, fine, let's change my password. Then you had to wait a few hours for that to kick in. Then they're like, everything should be fine. Great, everything's fine. So I go in to use my iTunes account, and this isn't for me to download music or anything, by the way. This is so that I can listen to the music that I currently have downloaded on my phone. Because as soon as my account was disabled, I couldn't listen to songs on iTunes. I couldn't get new apps downloaded. Like I had to try to upload or download a new parking app for Boston because I was in a bad situation. It's all my fault. I'm dependent on this stupid thing. But because I didn't have my password right, I was hosed. I couldn't do that stuff. So then they said, okay, a couple hours, you get this fixed. A couple hours go by, I go to use my account again, it says that it's disabled. So I call them back on the phone, wait on the phone for a bunch of time, and they go, oh, that must be with this other department. Let's put you through to this other department. So I go to this other department, get on the phone with them, and they go, oh, that's weird. There was a billing error. And for some reason, you had some spending things that happened that didn't seem like what you would normally do, so we suspended your account. And I go, you didn't call me, you didn't tell me. Like, none of that happened. And they said, yeah, so what we need to do is we need to change your password. And I was like, okay. And they said, that'll take like 12 hours to enact it. And I literally said to the girl on the phone, I go, what do you put like a messenger on a bicycle and have it ride the password change to someone? Like, how does the 12-hour thing work?
I'll tell you what really happened is they put you on hold. They were like, and then they talk and go, how can we fuck with this guy? I'm telling you, that's what happened.
Yeah, you got blacklisted.
That's 100% what happened. I've never heard of some shit like that. That's a total lie.
I'm like red flagged at this point.
Yeah, they got you. They Googled you. That's the dick trying to get everyone off Max. So, break his phone. He calls up, tells it's disabled. We don't actually have that. Yes, we do. 12 hours.
Well,
it's like an AOL account. I mean, 12 hours, that's a long time.
It made no sense.
It's like dealing with Comcast right there.
Yeah, Comcast the worst.
But, well, it's cool that we're talking because when I first reached out to you guys, I think you and I were the first two that talked,
Yeah,
right?
we talked for like an hour.
And let's talk about how that worked out because I think a lot of filmmakers would be interested to know how the sponsorship thing worked out because I think there's a lot of filmmakers out there that write for sponsors and they never get a response and they never hear anything. Like, why did you end up deciding to team up with us?
I always look for people, and I get sponsorship requests like every day. So the first thing I always look for in a sponsorship request is demonstrable work. Like I want to be able to, even if you're not getting paid for it, are you doing reviews on the equipment you're doing? Are you show me that you can produce? It's a sponsorship opportunity is kind of like bringing a member of the family on as an employee, you know? And so you have to say, can they do the work? So a lot of people come to me and say, hey, I'm going to review your system on my YouTube channel. And I don't see a single system review. Like you review your crappy $400 PC, you know, just show me that you can do a review. But I think that's the first thing. So I went on and saw you had done other work like that. And so, okay, it's worth a phone call, you know, that's worth a phone call. That alone for me gets you on the phone.
That's smart. That's good because a lot of people don't consider that stuff. And then once we chatted about stuff, because at the time I was talking to a couple of different companies because of course I do the sprawl to see who I can get my hands on. And there was some larger companies that I was talking to and I honestly can't even remember what their name was. And then I remember talking, I think I was talking to you, it was either you or John. And it was, you guys were like, look, we know that we're a smaller company. We know that we're a smaller thing, but if you go with us and you decide to work with us, then we promise that we'll be dedicated and we'll promise that we'll help you guys out. We'll promise to do all that stuff. And that really, really switched it. And I'm really happy that I went that way because I feel like if I had gone with one of the larger companies, we would have been completely marginalized. And it would have been like, oh, great, you know. And then you start to get into that whole game of like, what kind of traffic do you get? Like, what kind of page hits do you get?
Yeah, you can't. I think it's a poor measurement when you're talking about traffic or engagement. I mean, that stuff's interesting to me, and I certainly ask people in our business about that kind of stuff. But it really doesn't tell the whole story. I mean, you're going to go on a journey. If you're going to get into a relationship like this with somebody, you have to say, okay, this is a 2, 3, 4 year minimum commitment for it to really bear fruit. I mean, we've been doing content creation now. As a focus, I mean, we've been in business 16 years, but it's really been a focus in the last 4. And we're only now like in the puberty stage of our business. You know what I mean? We're really even trying to figure out who we are in the space. So I think it's, that's one of our advantages of being a smaller company. You can bob and weave. I like the statistics, but they don't mean much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. And I was really happy that was the route or the belief system that you have, because sure, we have our history as music video directors and we get a lot of page hits if we do something with like a huge band. So of course, like the traffic that you get for the band goes to that. But my concern, once we started to get into this stuff, was like, this takes time. It takes time to get a following. It takes time to get people interested. It takes time to do that. And I was just really excited when you guys were like, look, we'll support you. We'll be a part of this. And it's a growth process. And that sort of energized myself and Tony and the people that work with us. So any of the content that we started to create for you guys, we were really 100%. It wasn't sort of like, hey, we just got to do this.
Have to throw this together for you guys.
Just throw the shit together and then you get it out. Like, we go through the process of like getting good music and getting music licensed for it and putting together these pieces that we honestly, as filmmakers want to see. So it isn't just like an unboxing video and here's all this shit, but it's something that is engaging and fun to watch. And we're taking the time as storytellers to do these things. So like, let's make it a little interesting for ourselves and make it work for everybody.
I think it's important for listeners to understand, like, if you could fall into a trap if you're in their position where you would say, I just want to get a sponsorship. And that's a poor mentality. What it needs to be is the right one, because a poor sponsorship arrangement can really be a drag on your life. Everyone we sponsor is really part of our family. They're people we hang out with and talk to and spend time with because we enjoy their company. So if you're on the other side, like if I was in your chair, Mike, it's like if we were a poor partner, it would really suck and it would affect your business. So I think that it's important for people to go, well, I got to get a sponsorship. No, you're better off with no sponsorship than a bad sponsorship arrangement. That's something you can't get hung up on of, well, to be legit, I got to be sponsored. No, if you're making stuff, if you're creating, then you're legit. And I think that having a sponsorship is just a tool, and you can't let it be a status item. You know what I mean? That, because I have this sponsorship, I now have arrived. And it's like, that's not really true.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's a weird point, because it was never something that I had ever thought about. And when we started to approach you about a sponsorship, I felt, what it was? It was just the pure anger that I had.
You were pretty pissed off that first phone call.
Yeah, like the pure anger that I was having with the computer and with the system and everything that I was going through. And then just the dumbfounded realization that there wasn't this information out there, that if you were to break away from that system and try to make something on your own, it wasn't very easy. It was really difficult. And I used to build PCs as a kid, so I know a little bit about them and I know a little bit about that stuff. But it was a really hard thing. And for me to turn to my business partner or people that I work with who are Mac bred, you know what I mean? And that's the way, and it's right. Mac for years has always been straightforward, never crashes, quote, quote, never crashes, like industry standard, never have a problem. You buy it, you set it up, and you go. And they've just steadily gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And they've changed their model where it went from being for professionals to more of the prosumer level to the consumer level at that point.
Was such a huge drop off, because for years they were known as the artist's brand as far as computers went.
And they're genius about it. I was reading a book on how they do their marketing. Their marketing is not, hi, we're Apple, we sell computers. Their marketing is, hi, we're Apple, we change the world, we're a lifestyle.
Yeah, we're a lifestyle brand.
And so you can continuously sell that lifestyle, and you're never really hunkered down by a gear or accessories or any of that stuff. You're just selling that Kool-Aid for that lifestyle. And so when people get on that, it's not a cheap decision. Like when we decided that we're going to buy an iPhone and we decided we're going to buy these things, it's like a $300 investment, and then if you're going to buy a MacBook Pro, it's like I think the one I have is from like 2013, and I think that guy was like $1,800, for the initial investment. Now, mind you, my laptop is awesome. Like, I love their laptops. Their laptops are killer. I never have a problem with their laptops. And I never really had a problem with them until they seemed to walk away from my industry. And at that point, it was really difficult for us, because the Kool-Aid that they were pitching was, we'll never leave you. It'll be fine.
But do you think it was a walk away? Because when you say walk away, and I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the phrase walk away to me evokes like the idea of intentionality. Or I wonder sometimes if Apple thought that group was still with them and just didn't notice.
Maybe that's it.
You know what I mean? Like, I really do. I really feel that they consider themselves a content creation, and then all of a sudden they discovered that, whoa, our people aren't around anymore. Where are they? It's through relationship neglect. But I sometimes wonder if it was like an intentional, because walking away seems intentional to me.
Yeah, and that's good. I'm happy that you corrected me on that, because I don't think it's like a hoo-hoo.
Yeah.
Like, there isn't some guy in a cave somewhere going like, how do we make it?
It's no malicious intent there.
I think they just honestly felt like, hey, look, we know what's right. go this route. We're going to change the way you guys do editing. This is going to be better for you. The workflow is going to be different. And they made a gross miscalculation of not supporting older projects.
Yeah, we'll find the FedEx.
That was it. Like that, like if you're looking at the core part where like all of a sudden our industry went, you know.
But you talk
like,
about
was a
that in
moment.
mechanical terms though, Mike, of like we couldn't get to our old timelines, but did it really like it seems to strike a harder nerve than that for you. You know what I mean? Like it's not really about not being able to get the old timelines. That's just a technology challenge that can be done. But did that was that kind of like a them telling you to fuck off, you know what I mean? Or you don't even know me anymore and so you just do this change? Or how did you feel as a creator at that moment?
Well, you know what it is? It's not anything that's serious. It's just it's a tool. And a tool starts to tell me what I have to do.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're gonna go out and get a shovel, and suddenly the shovel tells you that you got to be wearing gloves and you got to have a certain pair of boots on and you got to do this stuff. You're like, fuck you, you're a shovel.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to dig a hole with you. And
Yeah.
that's basically what's going on. And so for them to start to turn everything and go, guys, you got to do this. And then my aggravation isn't necessarily with them. My aggravation is with the users, because then there is this whole cultish thing that circles around it where people are like, are you using a Mac? And like, it's a stature game where like you flip open the laptop and you're looking at it, you're doing that stuff. And maybe it's just who I am. I just get really frustrated when you can see an option and no one pays attention to that option and no one gives it any validity. Yeah. And if you're in our business as a post-production house or somebody else, the first thing they would say to you is like, you guys use PCs? And you would potentially lose work and you would potentially not get clients. How does that integrate with our stuff? Well, that's a solid question. Here are our answers of how we make that integrate. We use this other program and we Mac format all our drives and our PCs are able to work on Mac formatted drives. It'll be seamless for you. Yeah, but you're using a PC? You know, and so that's where my anger came in. And it wasn't necessarily Mac that did that to me. It was just the results of that cult, you know, that circles around it. And then I got irritated and went like, well, fuck you. I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to find a way to do this. And then I went out to hunt for it. And then when I found you guys, it was like, oh, cool. Because then I also had to be a responsible businessman and go like, okay, I can't. Sure, I can go out and build all these edit systems. Sure, I can go out and buy the cases. You know, when you guys build all the time. You buy stuff and the hardware comes and it doesn't work or it doesn't fit in, or you break something when you're sliding it in, and there's that whole game. Or you install the software and for some reason you're getting crashes because it's not working with this stuff. I've been there, and as a responsible business owner, I can't. And one of the guys that brings in all the work and the content and creates the content, I can't be tech support. So like I hit that road of like, I know that I can build a system that'll be faster and better and cheaper than this thing. And I can start to make a profit on it sooner than I could with a Mac, but I can't be the guy that supports this thing.
That's a great point. And I think that's something that people miss when they buy a business tool. With a PC, they'll say, well, I can build my own. But I remember this old trucker told me a saying about being in the trucking business. He said, the truck only costs you money and the wheels aren't turning. And I think that's a lot like an edit machine. You know, your job is to get work, and it's not to build a PC. It's not to service a PC. Those are your tools. And so they have to work. And so if one job, if the difference between building your own and buying one, like from us or anyone else in the market, really like if that got you one more job that you can turn faster, it pays for the difference.
Yeah.
And then you're in the gravy.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's important if you're a hobbyist, be a hobbyist. But if you're going to get in the business, like there's a cost to doing that. I think you got to jump in. You know, that's people skimp out and they spend their time. The time is the one thing that is definitely finite. Is your time and your effort, your mental bandwidth. I mean, all your creative juices, if it's spent trying to figure out why your computer's not booting, then you're gonna sit down and do an edit. Well, you're worn the fuck out, man. Tech support will do that to you. You know what I mean?
And it never happens like, it's not like it's like, oh, we have a lazy Monday. I went into work today and I went to start up my computer and it didn't start up. It's always like right in the fucking trenches
Yeah.
where you're like right in the middle of it and then some shit happens. You get that spinning pinwheel of death and you're sitting there going, oh my God, I just rendered out stuff the same fucking way I did yesterday, without a problem. It's like the machine is communicating with my client and they're screwing me.
Yeah.
Like he's just sitting there going like, oh my God, this is killing.
It's terrible because windows of time in post-production, like they're scheduled so tightly between finishing your edit and delivering. Like it's so tight. So when you do have that problem, that, you know, already going to be 10 to 12 hour workday of finishing out a project, editing, mastering, all of those final touches now turns into an 18-hour why the fuck is nothing working day.
And they should be, you know, I mean, I think it's important for people to know it should be tight. That time should be tight. I mean, you got to keep it efficient in your business.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you want to make any business, it's about efficiencies. It's about having processes and it's about having efficiencies. That's how you make money.
Yeah. And that's what you're looking for. And you're trying to come up all the way through with filmmaking. Filmmaking, we talked about this in the last podcast or the next podcast, however we release it with Rod. Filmmaking has all these systems in place to take chaos and make something out of it. Because essentially what you're doing every time you make a project, whether it's a movie or commercial or a promo video, is you're starting a new business at that point. You're literally hiring a whole new staff, maybe some regulars that come on board, and you're bringing in all this talent. You're dealing with scheduling. You're dealing with all this stuff. So you have like this hurricane of shit that is swirling around you, and you're trying to make sense of it, and you're trying to push forward. And in the beginning, when you're an indie, you barely make it out of those storms. You're like, oh, wow, I almost made it. Like all this stuff was crushing me and everything was pushing me down. I crawled my way out. And most of the time, you as the creator are the one that has to pick up all the slack because you don't have money. So you're like, oh, I was editing for like 3 weeks for 15 hours straight. I haven't slept in a month, or like I had to spend every dollar from my bank account to make this thing work. Great. You do that in the beginning because you got to. You got to prove your track record. You got to show the product, like you were saying before. But then you hit a point where you've been doing it long enough that you're like, I can't live like this. I cannot be that guy that is like desperately trying to crawl my way out of this. There has to be a system in place. And there is. And from the filmmaking side of it, there's like 100 and, well, I got to get the numbers right. It's like 150 years that cinema's been around or something like that. Terrible with it. But there's a system that's there. So like when you're on set, there are certain crew positions. There's an order to operations. Like simply before you roll, the order that you stage things. So like there's a system called, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but it's called block light shoot. So like you have a shot, right? So on the script it says, Chris walks in the room, takes his pants off, and moves everybody. You know what I mean?
That's pretty standard.
That's normal. Yeah.
So you have
To be expected.
You have an entire crew of people that are there. Lighting techs, makeup person to make sure your ass looks great. You have wardrobe, you have all this stuff. They all want to jump in and do their job. A, because they want to impress and they want to do it right. B, they want to get done and they want to get out. So everybody's ready to go. And so if there isn't a system, everybody just goes and everybody jumps in and they're all over each other. And the lighting guys, from a lighting perspective, you're like, I don't even know where to light. I have enough lights. I can light the entire room. Like, where do I put the lights? What do I do? Show me what's going to happen. And so there's this system that's in place, block light shoot, where the director will take all of his department heads, bring them into the space, and then work with the actors, and we'll just walk through the space. And the actors will go, I think we're going to go here. We'll land here. We'll do this. And the director's like, I'll use this lens here. I'll do this here. I'll do that there. So that you're feeding all this information to this, basically your generals in your army. And so then everybody goes through the process of working at that point, lighting and doing all that stuff, and then you do the shoot. This is a system that has existed for years. And then when you get into the independent world, when I started in the independent world, it's like they forgot it. So you'd show up on sets and it was just fucking chaos. And then people are trying to figure that system out again. And they're like, oh, and so by the time you get done with that set, they go, you know what's a really good idea is we should probably walk the actors through here first. And you're like, that's like a thing that's existed since time began.
Yeah.
You know? And it filters all the way through post-production. And there's like an order of operation. Like if we're editing something, you got to get picture lock before you get into all the polishing stuff. So before I send the footage over to the sound guys to do their sound editing, or before we start to do color, or before we start to do any sort of mastering or effects, it's got to go in picture lock, which basically means we have an edit, that edit is approved, seal of approval, that edit does not change. And there are some times where that edit has to change and it throws the whole system awry. And that's why post-production schedules get all crazy, because everybody is working off that sync timeline that is created in that process. In filmmaking, my point is that filmmaking, if done right, there's only one way to take this chaos, which is an idea that comes out of one asshole's brain, and he has to filter it to all these different technicians. You need this reliability of process there so that everybody can do their jobs right. And I feel that way when I'm an editor in the edit room. And I know that when I start the computer is going to start up. I know that if I save and back my stuff up, that stuff is going to exist. I know that I've purchased and bought the right hardware so that when I hit that space bar, it plays. And as soon, and oftentimes with like software updates, operating system updates, what happened yesterday when I hit that space bar, because of that update, I hit that spacebar again, and it just doesn't fucking work anymore.
Well, yeah, it just changes. Well, like we did a whole bunch of testing just recently on like Premiere and After Effects and stuff, and then I think it was like a week ago, Adobe launches a whole new update. It changes everything. Luckily, this time not changing everything much, but a little bit, and yeah, it just changes over time, like what things work and what things don't, how it changes, how it uses different hardware and all that.
That's got to be really irritating.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because they're constantly, because you guys don't work for Adobe. You guys are a company that sort of depends on Adobe, especially for the edit stuff, because they're the primary thing. So you need to be able to create hardware that works in collaboration with them. And then, of course, they're constantly shifting their...
Yeah, I mean, it's usually not a huge change. Usually it's just like small, minor tweaks here and there, like you want to have more of a video card power or something on it. But yeah, sometimes it's major. Like 2 years ago, After Effects totally changed. Totally changed the kind of hardware you want to use on it. Like it used to be dual Xeon, crazy workstations and stuff were awesome. And then right after that update, it was terrible. It's terrible for what you'd be doing in After Effects. So yeah, it just changes. And it kind of sucks, especially when they tend to time it like right before NAB. And we try to do all of our testing leading up to NAB, so we're up to date. And then they launch the update right before. And
anyway,
that's awesome.
From a user's perspective, it's interesting because, okay, so we pay for the Creative Cloud. I love Adobe, I love their products, they're awesome. And they say that right off the bat. We pay for the Creative Cloud. Part of the benefit of the Creative Cloud is that I get their updates constantly. So in your mind as a user, you go, well, updating means it's gonna go better. Like an update means it's going to go faster, or it's going to fix a couple of bugs, and it's going to do that stuff. We don't conceive on our end that they're planning for some new thing that they're doing, so that they're just swapping how it integrates with the hardware. Yeah. And so when we go to hit that space bar again, and the stuff starts stuttering, we go, like, what the fuck? Like, this is supposed to be better, and I'm still cutting with this same footage. How come that's not better anymore? And why do you think that they're swapping up?
It's just changing. I mean, hardware changes, and they're keeping up with things. They're learning new stuff. All the Intel and NVIDIA and all these hardware guys. I mean, it's just everything changes over time. And usually, it's not significant. Like, it really, like Premiere, stuff you use most of the time, it doesn't change significantly. But yeah, that After Effects thing, like that kind of stuff, is where it gets totally weird. And their official answer still is like, if you need really high performance when you're using After Effects, revert back to 2014, After Effects 2014 to do your final export, because it'll be way faster. And still, that's like 2-3 years later, or no, I think it's just 2 years later now, and that's still their official answer. Is if you want higher performance, use the old version. But yeah, it just things change. They're just
But that's where
rolling
the
with it.
sword cuts both ways. Like if you want something highly flexible, it's going to be highly breakable too. I mean, there's a lot of iterations of computers out there, and so but you have one software package. So what do you want it to do? I mean, there's going to be quirks. There's also the human element. Like, I think that if you look at technology coldly, you would assume, well, it should work every time, but it's just made by people, you know? I mean, it's just people doing it. And so sometimes they fuck up, you know, and that's just the way it is. I mean, and so you just have to realize, like, that's part of the process. And I think it's important, like, if you're going to love the process, you have to love the warts too. You know what I mean? And plan for it. Know that, hey, you know, like in our business, we're able to take some customers and we put them on a slower update deployment ring. So there's a fast ring and a slower ring and like a glacier moving ring. And, you know, we move that to try to protect them because you have these issues. So it's never perfect. It never has been. And it's never been intended to. I mean, especially computing has always had a foundation of this kind of hacker mentality of just try it and see if it works, and put it out in the field. And you know, with that flexibility comes sometimes you get cut by the blade.
That's a good point, man. That's a really good point.
Let me ask you something. I'm curious. Like, I'm sure when you were a younger man and you're going to film school, you really had. My guess is, by knowing you, that it was really behind the camera. That's where you really fell in love. So, do you feel sometimes a tension between the edit room and the camera?
It depends on what you're doing. I think that
because I'll tell you this, like in photography, and you're a photographer,
Yep.
genius photographer.
No, not genius. No kissing here. We're not kissing each other.
Yeah. But you know, there's some people who decide, well, I'm going to set up a photo shoot so the camera catches what's real, and there's some people who are like Photoshop wizards, and there's that tension there. So does that tension kind of exist for you, where it's like, my job is to catch it on camera and to do as little editing as possible, or you find yourself going, well, I have to recover in the edit room?
No, I think that there are definitely, for myself, no. I think that when I came up, yes, I knew the camera, and that was really I believe that it's a visual medium, so I'm very sort of obsessed with framing and obsessed with visual storytelling. But I was also, at the same time, trained. So I need to shut that. Okay. I was also at the same time trained on editing. And when I went to school in New York Film Academy. I cut on Steambecks, which were like platter table surfaces, and we shot on 16 millimeter reversal film, and it would roll through a projected light and project on a tiny screen. So you'd actually roll through the film, pick where you wanted to do your cuts, pull that film out, put it on a splicer, splice it, take that stuff off. That's where the term bins comes from. When you're looking in Premiere, there was literally a bucket next to us with a series of little tiny hooks that you would hang all of your cuts by their sprockets on like these little coat hanger hooks. And so it was very sort of meticulous. And you really couldn't do like the MTV style of cutting, because by the time you cut out like 2 or 3 frames to do that jump cut, and you're like, oh, this doesn't really work. You had to put all that stuff back together. So you had to put all those pieces back together so that you can go back to it. So it taught me how to preconceive my edits and taught me how to shoot for my edits. So that's kind of where I come from. But there is a tension, especially in the advertising world. There is a tension between on-set and the edit room. And I think mostly because they're two different hires. Mostly because when they hire their DP, their crew, sometimes their director, that is one stage for like an ad agency. They go, we're going to pick these people. I have to bid on that stuff. I got to go through the process of winning that bid, tell them how I'm going to handle this on set. And a director on a commercial is different than being a director on a film. You're really there as quality control, because the creative team is like, pick the shots. They've done the shot lists. They've done all that stuff. You're there for quality control and to manage the talent and then sort of make it work. So that in itself, it's its own process. Then they take all that footage and then they usually hire a post-production facility like us or like other big post-production places. That job then comes in. And it's usually the editor at that post-production facility that has to basically win that bid. It's usually the editor that is like proving his skill. or the producer has a really good relationship with that editor. Now, the director often doesn't go to the edit. Oftentimes, it gets pulled right out of your hands because it's not really your project, and it's put in the hands of the creative team and the producer, and then they take it to an editor, and then they start from there. So there's immediate disconnect between those two different teams. So oftentimes when you're in an edit room, you'll find the blame game happening, where they sit there and they go, well, if they had got more footage, or if this shot was shot better, or if this was done better, then we could make this thing really cool. Because there's a disconnect at that point. And sometimes when we shoot, what I like to do is actually do it on camera and on the mic, and actually go, here's the reason why we're not shooting this coverage that you guys are going to be talking shit about later on. And it's because this actor is having a hard time right now, and blah, 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 blah. And so I put it on the microphone so that it's actually caught in record.
Yeah.
So that way when they get in the room, there isn't that tension. I think that's the only time that there's tension. I think if, as a filmmaker, there's tension between those two spaces, it's because you haven't done a good job in your prep having them communicate. Yeah. I prefer to have an editor there. Like, we're doing a job next week, which is a corporate job, a hospital job that Tony's cutting, and he'll be editing that whole piece. I'm bringing him on set to do data transfer and data management so that he's there, so that he can feel it, he can hear it, he can see it. He has that whole process of it, which will make it faster. And then in his downtime, he can be logging footage, he can be putting stuff together, putting clips in order so that that connection exists. So I think that's a long way to answer your question, but did I get to it?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because sometimes I think people could say, well, your job's to get it and right in the shot, and the editing should take care of itself. But
there's the other side of that too, is that I've definitely noticed an issue, especially with certain agency folk and certain clients. They're so used to people who shoot now. They shoot everything super flat, and they don't have a real look in mind, in concept for the shoot.
You're talking about color, right?
Yeah, and they'll just go like, we'll just fix it all in post. We'll take care of all this in post. So the shoot is much faster. Everything's lit, kind of boring, whatever. Mike likes to do a lot of those things in camera because he pre-visualizes everything. There's a reason why he chooses certain lens type. There's a reason why he has a certain light. There's a reason why he has certain colored gels available and flags and everything in there, is to create his own depth in camera, so that when we do get to post, we don't have to do as much legwork on that end. But then we have a lot of clients on set. They're like, well, why is this lighting taking so long? Why can't we just shoot it? And you're like, well, it's because you like this look, right? You like that look that we showed you? We got this by doing it mostly in camera. I would say like 70 to 80% of it is in camera. Like, whenever I color one of Mike's jobs, it's rarely ever a correction job. It's a grade. Yeah. And like a lot of other jobs that come into the office, it's both. It was shot flat. They don't have a look in mind. They kind of have a feeling that they want, and that really matters on the edit. I have to match the edit too, and the music that's going in. Yeah. So that becomes a correction job, and then a grade, a style. Yeah. So it's much better to have that pre-visualization and shoot for a look than it is, and take that time on set to make sure you get it right, rather than just like, screw it, we'll light it as flat as we can, we'll shoot it flat, and we'll take care of it in post. It's post's problem. People just kind of like pass the buck a lot. Yeah. And that's human nature. You're just creating a log jam. Someone's gonna get screwed on time. And it always filters down to post not having enough time because somebody gets screwed somewhere else, and it trickles down in that way.
It's really just that pre-planning. I've worked on jobs where I haven't had time to pre-plan, and sometimes the jobs just sort of roll through, and all your planning goes to shit because there's some sort of outside factor. It's that tornado. It's that hurricane of crap. You know what I mean? So no matter how much you plan for something, it could still all go to shit. And then you sort of just try to fall back on whatever systems are in place, and you're just like, please, for the love of God, slate these shots and do this for the edit, and because we have to sync these things. And please make sure you go through this process to save our ass. But yeah, man, I don't think there's a right way to make movies. I think that there's a rhythm to making movies and to get them done on time, but it's very fluid and flexible, all of it. Which is interesting. It's interesting that you asked that question, and you guys are an interesting. Like, do you guys have any questions for us as creatives from a technical standpoint? Like, do you guys have anything? Not to put you on the
I don't
spot.
know. I mean, we talk to you a lot, so I mean,
Yeah.
you and we have a couple other guys we talk to as well, and like I don't know, we always just seem to talk to you whenever we have those questions. So I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, the
Just like,
line of communication seems to always be open there.
Was
so.
there anything that you not just from us, but is there anything that you learned through your creatives that changed the way that you guys do things?
oh, I mean, totally. I mean, just from like our testing process, I mean, which is obviously what I care about the most because that's what I do. I mean, years ago, when I think when we started talking with you, like our Premiere Pro testing was terrible, honestly, looking back on it. Like we were looking at like 1080p and 4K H.264, and that was like it. And now, I mean, we talk to you a lot. How about you use red cameras and other people using ProRes and stuff like that, and we've just been able to really change what we do, what we look at, how our machines work when we're working up to 6K or even 8K now. Especially this year at NAB, we're hearing 8K more and more. So just just hearing that stuff and just knowing what you're doing, what you're planning on doing in the next couple of years, I mean that's gold for us.
I'll tell you, the thing that's been great for us by talking to creators is that I think what is going to make us successful in the business is falling in love with our customers' work. Like, I want you to make movies. That's
Thanks,
what I want
dude.
you to do. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want you to do. We have customers who are trying to cure cancer. We have customers that are trying to clean up the environment. We have customers that are trying to fix transportation problems. They're trying to do autonomous vehicles. They're trying to put commercial availability in space. I mean, we have customers doing like really incredible work that's really moving the ball forward for humanity. You know what I mean? So in our position, and I think that as a creator, sometimes maybe you find yourself, not great at something, and you have to kind of do that. And being part of the tooling of that trade is a great way to stay connected. Like, you shouldn't see it as, maybe someone doesn't make it as a director, maybe doesn't make it as a cinematographer. And so they said, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get involved and I'm going to sell cameras, or I'm going to be part of that environment. And I think that's totally legit because you're supporting other great work. And I think that's pretty noble. So I think one of the things for us is getting to creators is just realizing how taxing it is. And I'm not just talking about computers. I don't want to be a shill here, but any of your gear, if it doesn't work out of the box, I mean, I certainly don't want to be laying on the operating table and the surgeon's got PC problems. You know what I mean? Like, I want it to be working.
Sorry, there's an update.
Yeah. Sorry, check back in 3 hours. I don't want that. So I think that's the thing that really has been for us is it sounds weird to say it, but almost make the technology second. It is what it is. The technology is what it is. And so you have to just come up with the best solution you can. And it takes time to kind of get to know what people are doing. And there's just some really interesting work going on out there, and that's the part that makes it really enjoyable. We get like a little, I think that there's 2 places that have like an all access pass to life and business, and that's the law and IT. Like, they touch everything. And so being part of that IT group, we get a little peek into a broad array of what's going on out there in the world and interesting work, because a lot of it's being done on computers, whether that's like artificial intelligence and machine learning, biotech, autonomous vehicles, space travel, all these markets, they're all being done on computers, and so that gives us a little peek behind the curtain on that business. And that's what makes our job fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I often forget that because we're so absorbed with our industry and our film business that I forget that you guys are supplying these other outlets, which is really awesome and amazing. And you guys are in a very similar situation to the way that we work, especially in the documentary aspect of stuff, where we get to basically come in and take over someone's life for a little while and get a look at it. And it's very similar. It's like a lot of parallel to that.
It is. I think that we get to play a place of trust, and we take that. It's got to take it very seriously.
I believe you.
Yeah.
This seems like a good time to take a break and talk about some of our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Puget Systems. Obviously, I'm not going to do a big plug here because the whole episode is about these cats, so just go to PugetSystems.com. You can check out all the stuff that we've been talking about, and if you want to buy a new edit system, there's stuff there that you're going to really be excited about. So go to PugetSystems.com. Rule Boston Camera. They helped sponsor us for this episode and gave us a ton of audio gear to record multiple people in Las Vegas, so thank you guys. But as a freelancer, I completely believe in having a really great relationship with your local rental house. Essentially, it makes me worth more money, and here's why. Any and every camera on the market is at my disposal, and with my buddies at Rule, I can call them up directly and get training on all the new gear. Together, we can put together a package that specifically works for the project that I'm working on. I mean, how many times have you hired a cameraman or worked with a DP that is constantly trying to sell you on the gear that he owns? Regardless of whether or not it works for the piece. I mean, it's so ass backwards to do it that way. So if you want my opinion, go start a relationship with your local rental house, and if you're in the Northeast, I highly recommend Rule Boston Camera. All right, I can. So if you're in the market to buy gear, after I just did this plug for the rental houses, if you're looking to buy gear, make sure you pick up stuff that's going to work for every project you do. Now, iCan's a great resource for this because they sell everything from camera support to monitors, wireless video, and lights. I bought and use and love their battery-powered LED stuff. These lights are fantastic. They have a bunch of different types, a bunch of different sizes, a bunch of different models. I mean, I use those lights from everything from my documentary work to music video work to just doing some photo work too, actually, believe it or not. So go to icancorp.com and take a look around. There's a lot of really cool stuff there from really cool people.
Let's get into some other stuff. So, well, enough with the tech talk, because we've done plenty of that.
Yeah.
I don't want to, we're not plugging you guys. You guys are great, but that's it. No more plugs. All right, no more plugs.
How has like the trade show stuff done for business?
The trade show, and Eric can speak to it more from like boots on the ground aspect because he knows way more than I do.
Yeah.
But for running the business, for us, it's really like coming down to authority building and exposure. That's why we do it. We're present. And I think it's important to be part of community. You have to show up.
Yeah.
You want to be if you want to be someone's friend, you got to call them, you got to text them, and you got to show up at their house every once in a while. And that's kind of how I look at from a business strategy. That's how I look at trade shows.
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember that, I mean, the reason that we go out there is not, I mean, granted, yes, it's great to go out there and sell systems, but that's not necessarily the number one reason we're out there. Because we do want to get out there. That way we can do stuff like this and actually talk to you guys and learn more about exactly how our systems are being used and stuff like that. So, I mean, just getting out there, talking to people, that's the big win for me.
How many trade shows a year do you guys do?
I think we're at the point where we're doing about 6 to 8, I think it is. Depending upon if we start expanding a little bit more. I mean, next year could be potentially 10, I think it is.
It's got to be it's got to be really kind of a pain in the ass.
Well,
Because you got to move all this stuff out. You guys
It's
have
no different than working on a film shoot. It has to be a process. We have like a definite system, and we have to work the system. So what you can't do is reinvent the wheel every fucking time, or it's going to be painful.
What makes it really inconvenient is they always decide to schedule them all at the same time. It's like spring break. That's when all the shows are happening, So
Yeah.
makes it a total nightmare, yeah.
Yeah, we've
So-
got a pretty heavy travel coming up.
So you guys going to be on the road for a while, do you think?
Yeah, in 2 weeks, we're going to GTC. That's the NVIDIA hosted event. That's the one where they're heavy focus on like machine learning, AI, stuff like that. So we're pretty excited to get out to that one. It's always a cool event.
So you guys are like outside of Seattle, right? Is that where's home base again?
We're in a little town called Littletown. It's a mid-sized town called Auburn, Washington. It's about 30 minutes south of Seattle.
I've never been. What's it like up there?
It's basically like warehouses, and if you're looking for like a meal that has doesn't meet expectations, then that's really a great place to go. It's like a food desert, not because there's not food, because it's just all terrible.
There's no flavor there, yeah.
None. No, it's like your omelet comes with American cheese and canned olives. It's just
Auburn is that near Aberdeen?
No, Aberdeen is down by the coast. So you're thinking of Kurt Cobain's hometown there?
No, my sister lived in Aberdeen. For a while. She's a
Aberdeen's
teenager, so-
down towards the ocean, closer to Portland, and that's probably about 2 hours away.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of.
So You made your place sound so exciting to visit, FYI.
It's awesome.
So
No, never visit Auburn. Like, you can come visit us, but then we're gonna leave. We go somewhere else.
Well, then we'll go up to Seattle.
Yeah. But don't say I'm gonna plan my vacation for Auburn.
okay, so you
There is
had-
a horse track, and on the first Friday night, they do beer every hour. They spin a wheel to determine the price. I'm not kidding you. And it could be a quarter, it could be $2. And it's just like every hour they just get drunker and spin it. You know? It's $2 this hour, yay! So that is basically the highlight of Auburn, right there.
Well, it's like the hotel that we're staying in right now has a happy hour where from like 5 to 6.
5 to 6 beers or a nickel.
or
What?
5 cents.
Miller Lite.
Wait,
Miller
first
Lite.
off,
Miller
why
Lite
am
and
I
Bud
not
Light.
booked in this hotel? What am I doing?
Second, what time is it?
It's like Miller Lite and Bud Light for 5 cents. And it's like in an 8-ounce glass. But I don't think there's a limit to how many you can get at a time. We were getting two each at a time. So we go up and grab 6 beers for 30 cents, 35 cents.
That was such a mind-blowing thing for me, where the woman looks at us and goes, "How many do you want?" And you go, 6. And I go, "We're ordering 6 beers." Like, I just turned to you and I was like, "What?" And then Dave reaches in his pocket and pulls out like a quarter and a dime.
And that's the way it should be. You know what I mean?
It was just surreal.
Yeah,
It
but
was
you
so-
can't just pay 30 cents for some beers. It's like, just give her $1.
Yeah.
That's still too cheap.
It's still 70-cent tip.
What was that? Was that Cleveland? I'm trying to remember that real quick. Was it Cleveland that did 10-cent beer night and then it all went crazy?
Oh, I don't
Ended up
know.
burning the place
Oh,
down.
yeah, the baseball game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I think it was Cleveland. It was like back in the 70s. It's going to be Cleveland, Milwaukee, somewhere in the Midwest there. And they did 10-cent beer night, and they ended up having to suspend the game because it just got so out of control.
Rowdy.
Best part,
Really rowdy.
the best part is they just, instead of going, "That's a terrible idea, we're never going to do it again," in true Midwest spirit, 6 weeks later they did it again. You know what I mean? Like, and they said it was so out of control the first time that they had, so back in the day they would roll the beer up in these trucks, and they would serve it from the trucks around the stadium, you know, and then they'd take it back to, because that's when everyone had a local brewery. Like out in us, we had Rainier. You have Rainier beer now, but it's like actually brewed somewhere in the Midwest or something. You had this locally brewed. So they would drive their trucks over and they'd serve out beer. And the girls working the beer truck abandoned ship because the crowd so then the crowd was just feeding itself the beer. Like, it's not like they locked up and left. They just walked away. I thought, it's so great how just 6 weeks later they said, "Hey, fuck it, we're going to do it again." You know what I mean?
That's crazy, man. It's sports stuff. Like, I mean, we're from Boston, obviously. You guys know that. And that is the most sports intense city. I think,
Well, it's gotten weird over the past like 20 years because all the teams are winning now.
yeah. What was the year? I remember there was the year that they rioted
2004 when the Sox won their first.
when they won the first
Pennant,
one. Yeah. And I
They
like
went
it.
apeshit.
I'm an asshole. Like, I really stopped caring about sports when I was a kid. Like, but the first baseball strike, and I was like, I'm out. You guys are making tons of money. I'm out of here. So I stopped really paying attention, and I forgot that game was happening that
How
night.
could you forget that?
I don't know, dude. It's totally stupid. And I forgot, and I went to a restaurant down there. So I drove down there. I was with a couple of friends. One of our old buddies, Ben, actually. This is a good story. He ended up going down and eating in this restaurant. And as soon as you get down there, you go, oh, because it's just full. The place is just full of Red Sox fans, which are the very specific breed of people, the Red Sox fans. And so you're in it, and you're like,
Are they, like, when you say specific breeds, because the branches of the tree are few and far between?
they're just incredibly, they're incredibly intense.
They're just very intense, yeah.
And they're a very specific type of intense. Like, I lived in New York City for almost a year when I went to school in New York City, and Yankees fans are very intense, but specifically different. Like, I remember riding on a subway train during the World Series or something when I was out there, and there was just this old lady, and she had a broom. It was like, I'm so terrible at this. Whatever
They were gonna
broom,
sweep a team,
sweep a team.
Sweep a team, yeah.
And she's still on the train. She's like, "We're gonna kill you," and she's like really, and I'm like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, lady!" And she's just like really weird, but she was still really kind of nice. She was a little creepy, but she was still nice. She was like, "Oh, you like sports?" And I was like, "Cool." In Boston, it's different. It's like, What team do you like? Oh, fuck you.
Well,
You know, and it's
well,
like,
Boston sports kind of suffers from like that little brother syndrome where it's like, oh, we can do that shit too, and fuck you, we're better is like the attitude for every team.
and so like, and you start pounding beers, and you'll like a lot of people say, I don't hear a Boston accent out of you. I start pounding beers, and you start to hear that Boston accent, and most of the time that accent comes from you just being like, fuck you. Like it just
All born
starts
out of anger.
Yeah, or just pure laziness where it's like, oh, give me the fucking car and like, fuck you. Like it just starts when you start drinking. So like Red Sox fans, when they first show up, they're really nice. They get their hats. Everybody's really excited. And they're doing the long march to Fenway.
They keep to themselves, and then as soon as
The beers start happening.
Yeah.
And then that night we're there, they win. And then shit gets weird. Like,
Was that the first one or the second one? Because the first one they were in St. Louis when they won, and the second one I think they were in Boston.
I think it was when they were in Boston.
Yeah, okay.
And they win, and shit got weird, and people started rioting. And it's like, we fucking won. Why are we rioting? And I remember leaving the restaurant, walking down the street past this big movie theater that's at Fenway. And as we walk down the street to leave, there is a row of cops with plastic shields coming at us. And I was like, what?
Yeah, you didn't just go out; you went out towards Fenway.
That's what I was saying in that direction. So we're like, what the
Fucking
fuck?
white people, man. They always head to danger.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
So it's just like, what the fuck is going on? And these guys are coming at us, and then they start tossing tear gas. So tear gas starts getting tossed on the street. And so I remember ducking into the movie theater, which had the glass doors, and it was very surreal. Like the street fills with tear gas. It's like very cinematic. You know what I mean? Like dark figures. It's almost like The Mist, with like, like hands coming up on the glass and people like throwing up and like, oh my God, and screaming in like the worst Boston accents possible. And I remember standing in there just looking at this sort of cinematic display outside these glass windows. And my buddy, who I always picked on, and he's standing in front of it and he goes, I can't believe this is happening. I go, me neither. And I crack the door open so that it wafts in
So it
a
hits him.
bunch of tear gas. And it just hits his face and he starts screaming and throwing up in the movie theater. It was wonderful. It was just a wonderful story. I don't know why I brought it up. I think it was just to embarrass that kid on the podcast. But yeah, Red Sox fans are crazy.
Yeah, and poor Ben. He hates sports.
Yeah.
He was escaping sports to hang out with you, and you decided to go to a movie where all the sports are happening.
Drag him into that,
and then
yeah.
he gets tear gassed.
By his friend who's like,
Come on.
hello, open the door, tear gas it.
So we got to get back to the important thing: is where is this hotel serving nickel beer? I feel like we dodged the subject here, and I feel short. You know what I mean?
Well, we're staying at what, the Flamingo.
No, don't. I was going to say they're not sponsoring us, so we don't want to give out their name. Don't plug it. Don't plug them. Don't give them a free plug.
They don't give a shit.
It's not a good hotel.
No.
The Flamingo's not good.
So I'm at the Flamingo, but I'm at the Hilton behind the Flamingo. So there's a Hilton Grand Vacation behind the Flamingo, and I'm staying there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of shit in that area, too. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And that's actually been kind of nice.
I went out last night. I was like, oh, I don't have any fucking water, so I'm going to leave the hotel room. And I was walking around. I ended up at the In-N-Out that's attached to the
see,
Flamingo.
I gotta go tonight. I'm going in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see?
Made an attempt last night. Didn't happen.
It's
Turns
right
out it's not open at 2:30 in the morning.
What time did you go?
Oh, it was still early. It was like 10 or 11.
Right, because we're still on East Coast time.
So it was like 2 a.m. for me or whatever the fuck.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like, yeah, total fat kid move. Wasn't even that hungry. Saw In-N-Out. I was like, I'm going to go burger.
I didn't even know you went.
Oh, I go
and I saw your Instagram, and I went,
Yeah.
fat kid.
I ate my double in bed.
In bed, nice.
In bed. Fully clothed like a fucking piece of shit.
I had this roommate in college in Seattle. Kind of our In-N-Out is called Dick's Drive-In. And I know, I get a bag of dicks, right? So they would have these Dick's Deluxe and the burgers. I mean, they're just like 2 patties, and it's just this sauce and cheese, and I mean it's not good. I mean it's delicious, but it's not good for you, right? And I had this roommate, and he would get drunk and get in his bed, and he wouldn't shut up until we like threw a burger up there at him. And we would go to Dick's, and he'd be running his mouth and be like, "Hey man, just shut the fuck up."
So you always just had like a reserve burger.
Yeah, and you had to make sure you ordered a couple ones. If not, then he'd be totally annoying. And you just chuck that burger up into his bed, and he'd just lay in bed and just eat it in his bed. Shit would get everywhere, man. I don't know what his problem was.
What is this eating process? Like rolling around on it?
Yeah, he was just so excited, you know. Oh, man. He wanted to rub it on his face. I don't know, man. You know, people do weird stuff for burgers.
Yeah, and we were just talking about this because we're about to hang out with Dave's brother Nick tonight. And Nick has been in a bunch of our movies. He's an actor. He's great. He's very professional. Really cool guy.
Yeah, Nick was he played the lead in our Kill Switch Engage video for Always.
Is this supposed to be like a contrast to Dave? I mean, you're getting all these compliments.
Yeah.
He's handsome and
Unlike someone.
like the gene pool took all the talent one day.
I love how excited about that.
He doesn't have a mic. Can't even say shit. So,
But yeah, no, he's coming into town tonight. We're gonna hang out with him, and I love him. But I was giving him shit earlier because he's like, where did he want to go?
Burger place.
Wahlburger.
No, it's some
Ugh,
fancy
no.
burger
You
place.
got you got Wahlburger out there. Is that actually good?
No, it's not good.
No,
It's not good. Nothing good about it.
Yeah, they got a Wahlburger here.
They're terrible. It's expensive and it's not good.
yeah.
It's a bummer.
They're not a sponsor either, apparently.
That was the first thing running through my head. Like, am I ever working with Mark Wahlberg? No, the burgers are really great there.
Yeah.
He knows they're bad. He's not
He knows
stupid.
they're $8.
He's not stupid.
But yeah, Nick was coming into town tonight, and he wanted us to go to some burger place, and we were just making fun of it, or one like it, when we checked into the hotel.
Yeah, they were playing like as soon as you get in, you like immediately at the check-in desk. There's all these like big screen TVs behind the check-in desk showing you all the shit to do in town. Here's the places to eat. Here's the shows to see. Here's the casinos to throw your money away at. And one of the things was like, here are the different burger spots. So it's like Gordon Ramsay's fucking joint, like these other places where these like huge burgers. They're just stacked full of shit that doesn't belong in a burger. And then it just has like a steak knife through it, like all the way up to like the handle.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't even eat that thing. That's the kind of place that Nick wants to go to.
Yeah, I've actually I've been to some great restaurants here in Vegas, but by and large, they just try to overwhelm you with quantity.
Yeah.
The food is actually not that good here generally.
It's the American way.
It's
Yeah.
America. This city is like America turned all the way fucking up.
I mean, there's literally a place in downtown Las Vegas where if you're over 350 pounds, you eat free.
What?
No
Yeah,
shit.
Heart Attack
Heart
Grill.
Attack
right?
Grill.
Jesus
It's
Christ.
a burger joint where, if you're over 300, you walk in,
You're king.
they
Yeah.
weigh you, and then if you're over 350 pounds, you eat free.
Yeah, there's a giant scale
That's
out
American
front.
right there.
So first you're part of the show.
Yeah.
So like there's a circus act that gets on the fucking scale, and then second they're like, you need to die, and we're here to murder you.
I mean, it's called Heart Attack Grill.
Well, don't they even give you like a hospital gown to wear? Or
Oh yeah,
something
everyone's
like
wearing
that?
hospital gowns. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Like, do we all
America.
just to that weight?
It just
Can we do that?
looks like a place that just hopes and dreams go to die. Yeah.
Oh, it must just smell like that. Like,
Yeah,
oh.
but the town here, it doesn't have, people, to me, I think Vegas is kind of overplayed in that area. You hear about, all these great restaurants and chefs, and I've tried a lot. I mean, we've been to a lot of great great places here, and you walk away going, it's not that great. Actually, probably the best meal we've had on the road, he knows what I'm going to talk about, was at a gas station in Houston, and they served barbecue. And we go in and we find this place. I don't even know how we found the place, but we got done. We spent about 8 hours at Johnson Space Center doing a tour there with some customers. We got a lot of systems in the space program. And we were starving because we thought we were going to be there like 4 hours. And so we came out, we go to this little gas station. And it's going to be a great restaurant when you order something, they go, nah, you can't have it.
She literally looks back at us and she's like, no, you're not getting that.
Yeah. She's like, that's not good today. You're not getting that. And then so I just finally, I love restaurants where I can just go, you know what, you tell me. You You just tell me. So if I can go to a place where, you know, you can just tell whoever's working the kitchen, I don't know, make me something. You know, those are probably the best places.
I completely agree with you. I don't know if I ever told you guys this story, but I'll go on another tangent. Tony and I were doing a documentary in the past couple years, like 2 or 3 years. We were shooting this documentary on inner city gangs, and it was a film directed by our buddy Rudy Hippolyte. Second movie I've done with him. One of the only directors that I still work as a director of photography because the experience is so much fun. And this film enabled us to go to certain parts of Boston that, because of my skin color and my heritage, it is considered dangerous to do so. So, like, and from
Well, it's not really dangerous, but
it's just sold that way
we're
to us.
told that it's dangerous. Like, you don't go to this part of town.
You
It's like,
never go down to like.
You're not going to test those waters or
Yeah,
anything.
you never
right?
go down to
Stone.
parts of Roxbury. You never go down to
But
parts
it's fine
of
now.
Mattapan.
It's yeah,
We learned that.
yeah.
And one of the best parts about doing his films is that more often than not, we're given sort of this pass because we have handlers, we have people that are with us. We get to meet people immediately. So like all of those blockades are sort of torn down and we get to meet these folks. And so for a while, we were hanging out in these neighborhoods that were gorgeous and the people were just so wonderful. And the stuff was so great. And it's a part of the city, a big part of Boston that I never would have been able to experience if I wasn't doing this movie. And now I'll totally drive down there and totally go and do whatever I want because we've had our eyes sort of opened to what it actually is. Well, to connect the stories here, one day we were going out for lunch. Do you remember this?
Yeah, it was it lunch or was it dinner? Because it was that night shoot.
Yeah, they all blur.
Yeah.
So we were going out for dinner, and our handler was like, "I know this great place. They do like the amazing Jamaican food," is what he said. And so Tony and I, being guys that eat out all the time,
Yeah,
being-
my
being fat boys
experience,
at heart.
my only experience with like Jamaican food is like beef patties and like jerk, like chicken, and that's it. Like I have no other experience with Jamaican food. So it's like an actual Jamaican joint. Yeah.
Yeah. And both of us were like, off the grid, yeah, we're totally down. So they take us to this like little strip. And it's like a little strip, like a couple barbershops on the strip, like some like used electronics store or something else. And then there's this storefront that looks like it should be a restaurant. I don't even know if there was a sign on it. And then you go inside and there's all like the display cases and everything's empty. The place is empty. We walk in there and there's a woman behind the counter and there's no menu or anything. There's like no menu up. And we walk in and we sort of look at each other like, what the fuck are we doing here? And she says hello and she's really friendly with the handler. And he talks to her a little bit and he's like, do you guys all want food? And we're like, yeah, of course, you know, we're here to eat food. You guys like spicy food? You like Jamaican jerk? And I love Jamaican jerk chicken. I'm like, yeah, Jamaican jerk. But I'm looking at the case and there's nothing. There's nothing there. And she goes, okay. So then someone goes downstairs, brings up like a card table or folding table and chairs, and they set us up this thing. And we sit down in the spot and she goes off and starts to cook. And she cooks it from scratch. We were in there for a while. We were in there for at least an hour. And she goes back in the kitchen, starts to make this food, and everybody ordered slightly different dishes, and she was cooking them all up from scratch. And they brought them out, and it was amazing. Like the most amazing jerk chicken that I've ever had. And granted, I've never been to Jamaica. Granted, I've never done that stuff. But it was fantastic. And it was just one of those eating experiences that you would never have as in your daily life because it's in a neighborhood that you shouldn't go into. And then you drive by it and you look at it and there's no signage, there's no nothing happening there. But we just went in and we had like this incredibly personal meal experience.
They're really the only meal experiences worth having. I mean,
It's so much different than here.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we all ate like family style too. It was like
Yeah.
the director, his producer, coach, the two of us, our sound guy, the handler, and one of the other guys that was with the handler.
Yeah.
And it was just us. We just ate family style with the woman cooking, and whoever was there with her was, I think, like her brother was helping her with the meals and like all the prep work.
and family style is really the way to go.
Oh, dude, shared food. Shared food is the best because I was talking about this earlier. that ultimately, like if you can't communicate, like if we speak a different language, we're from a different place, food is that one thing that connects us. And if we're having like an awkward thing, like I like to do a lot of my pre-meetings, like if I'm meeting people for films, or if I'm like courting actors, or if I'm courting crew, I'm courting folks, I like to have them come over and I cook, because it breaks down all these barriers. It breaks down the nervousness. People are in that space and they're just sort of like, oh, okay, all right, great, you know. And like if we bring people and barbecue for people, there's a process involved. A beer gets put in your hand immediately, and then it's like, what are you doing? And Chris, you grill too and smoke, so like there's that come over, you know, and you break that rule where you're not supposed to lift the lid, and you lift that lid and you let the smoke out, and
Just
you
to
look
give everybody a
inside,
taste, yeah.
and everybody looks at it and they're like, A, smells amazing. I want to eat whatever the fuck it is that you're making. B, the commitment and the time that you put into making this thing for me says a lot. And C, I have something to talk about. Like, let's talk about what it is that you're making, and let's talk about that stuff. And whenever we do barbecues or grills, or have these sort of personal experiences, it always goes from food to life. And I always feel like the conversation starts to get into like, what makes you happy? Why are you happy? And especially after you start eating and you start drinking beers and you just feel really good. And there's that moment where you're just sort of sitting next to somebody who was a stranger to you, you know, 2 hours beforehand, and you guys are like vibing.
Now, breaking bread, I mean, that's the way to connect with people. And that's even like a good business tip for the listeners to see, you know, connect with those people in those spaces. I mean, I'll tell you, I learned this lesson early on in my career. I had a real customer service issue. My inside sales guys weren't getting along with some of my customers. They're fighting and arguing with each other. And I asked this guy one day, Bob, I said, how long have you been selling to this customer? He goes, about 20 years. And I said, well, when's the last time you sat down with this guy and had a lunch? He goes, I've never met him. 20 years, they'd only talked on the phone every day, Monday through Friday. They talked on the phone for 20 years. And never met. So then I started a deal where I go out twice a week. I take one of the inside guys and I go out and we go have lunch. We go meet people and either take pizza or go to lunch or something, you know, and have a meal. And like all of a sudden, all my customer service issues went away. Because once you eat with somebody, it's hard to motherfuck them. You know what I mean? Like, it's really hard. It's like, you know, like, sure, he totally blew it, but, you know, stuff happens, you know. It goes. So I think that's a good strategy. And those are really the best moments, you know? Yeah.
And yeah, I don't want to come off as, and I know you don't either, I don't want to come off as someone that is manipulating the experience. Like, look, if I'm going to close this deal, I got to take them out to eat. That isn't really the mindset. It's like you want to have this personal connection. Myself, I want to feel something about you, so that way I work harder for you.
I think it's even more basic than that. I agree with what you're saying, but like, eating is one of the basic things we do as people. I mean, here we are. We're sitting in this beautiful hotel, 60 floors up from Las Vegas. You strip all that away, and we're out in the hills here, and we're eating together, you know? So I think it's just more primitive than that. And I think it really connects deeper than that because of that. It's not about closing the deal. It's not about manipulating people. If it does manipulate people, because it really addresses a core comfort of humanity. You know, people want that connection. We live in an isolated world. These phones don't do shit for us, you know, as far as connecting people. You're not connected via a phone. You're connected just sitting around here, having a few drinks, podcasting. You know, that's where spending that FaceTime, that communal time. I think that's really what people are about.
That's really cool. And I think at that point, I think it's good to wrap this whole thing up.
Yeah, I think we're all set.
Yeah, I really appreciate hanging out with you guys tonight, and let's go out and have some of that little food community hangout.
I know people have been blowing me up on our rest of our crews. Like, are we eating dinner? We're super hungry.
Please feed us. Yeah.
All right, so let me just wrap this one out. And thanks for being with us tonight, and thank you everybody for listening. And tune in next week. Or no, tune in whenever we do another episode. I've done way too many of these today.
You can get a little too specific over there.
All right, we're good.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna plug them. Let's plug Bullet X. These guys make really fancy clips for putting gels on lights. Now, they aren't just clothespins painted black. They have this really narrow nose that fits in between a light's barn doors, and they have a really good grip to them. Now, I know some of your listeners are like, barn doors on lights? Yeah, I know it. I'm getting really nerdy with lighting here. Just relax. This is for the lighting nerds. Lighting nerds, go check out bullet-x.com. I think you'll really dig what they're making. And I started using them actually last week. All right, finally, McFarlane and Pecci. Why do I always give my company the shortest plug? I just noticed that last week. All right, go to McFarlaneandPesci.com to see all of our latest stuff. Are you a big fan of the UFC? We've got content for you. Do you like metal and hip hop music? Yep, there's stuff up there for you too. How about you just want to binge on some really cool visuals, like really cool cinematography? Or maybe check out some of my new chef's pieces. So you're into food porn and you want to drool over someone else eating food. It's all up there. And oh, hey, you can hire us too. Go to McFarlaneandPesci.com, check out all our new stuff, and hire us. All right, finally, follow me on Instagram. It's Mike Pecci on Instagram. I just this week actually did a contest for fans to see my short film 12 Kilometers, which hasn't been released yet to the public. And I wanted to get some feedback and a few reviews from you guys. So I definitely love interacting with the fans, and I love rewarding you guys for following me by giving you access to stuff that I'm doing and giving you the opportunity to be a part of stuff that the general public doesn't get to be a part of. But actually, big news around the 12KM stuff that I'm really not allowed to talk about. But let me give you a couple words. Feature film, Hollywood, yeah. Yep. Also, I just got signed by UTA. It's a huge talent agency. They have offices in LA. They have offices in New York and London. And this is really fucking awesome, guys. Like it's one of those moments in your career where you feel like you're making a big step forward. I just went out to New York City and I met with my new agent, so I'm really excited about the future. So stay tuned, because things may change around a little bit. All that being said, thanks for listening. And you know what? Fucking share the show if you like it. I need people to listen to the show. I need the numbers to go up. It makes it worth my time. It makes it worth your time. So if you like this show, if you think it's a great podcast, share it. Tell people about it. Rave about it. If you don't like it, then I'm sorry. See you later. But anyway, thanks for listening. Bye.